This group supports all 17 police departments across York County, as well as the DA's office. It was started 7 years ago with the Chiefs and Clergy meeting, and so today for our first other chats, we have Pastor Bill Kerney from Covenant Family Ministries and Chief Todd King from Springettsbury Police Department. Our goal is to help the York County community be safer together through trust and transparency. Enjoy the chats. So my first question for you guys is, you started meeting in 2016. Can you tell us about what those first few meetings were like?
Yes. I guess I'll start because I was there from the very beginning. We came together in 2016 because there was a need, first of all. We had a desire to not let the rioting that was taking place down in Baltimore from the Freddie Gray incident that was about 45 miles away from York City. We didn't want that influence to come up, and York County had been through a number of riots, and the history was tremendous here. And we didn't want that flavor to come up here because it would have just took one little spark to cause York City, York County to flare up again. And we had just celebrated the 50th year anniversary of the York riots that took place, and we were still in that mode. So some clergy got together. We start thinking, Lord, what can we do to head this off? What can we do to avoid the rioting, the destruction that was taking place in Baltimore to take place here in York? Well, we heard clearly, start a dialogue. Start a dialogue with the police and see what can take place from that. Let me lead you guys in this type of conversation that can build a relationship and see if that will head off what we're trying to head off here in York. So we called Aaron Anderson. I called Aaron Anderson and I said, Aaron, we need a meeting with the police, York County Police, York City Police. We need to sit down at the table and start a dialogue. He said, Bill, let me see what I can do, and I'll get back to you. Immediately, he came up with, I think, who was the chief of police for York City at that time?
It would have been Troy Bankert at the time.
No. Troy came in
after.
It
was Wes Cayley.
Wes Cayley.
Yes.
Troy came in later after
yes.
that. Wes Cayley, and they contacted a number of other police law enforcement officers. I think the DA's office may have had a representative there, but we set the meeting, and Logos Academy was so gracious to host it, and the room was full. One thing about this first meeting, Jamie, we kept politicians, we kept the media out of it. We didn't want no disruption from politicians or the media, but for some reason, Mayor Helford snuck in there.
I hope he watches this.
Yeah, he snuck in the meeting, and we couldn't say no to the mayor. We let the mayor come on in, and he was great. It was all right for him to be there. We appreciated it, but the room was full, Jamie, full. I mean, it was so many people. We didn't have many community leaders in there, but some came because they wanted to be a part of the dialogue. We just wanted this to be meaningful dialogue with law enforcement and clergy.
Could you describe, what was the feeling in the room? Because I've heard that people tend to sit in their groups, and so there was a lot of tension.
A lot of tension. We say, and you'll hear this term, you could have cut it with a knife. It was so much tension in the room. No one knew what to expect. This is the first time that clergy and law officials sat down at the table and had a dialogue, just start talking. And we were facing hard subjects. The nation was in turmoil. Shootings were taking place. Killings was taking place. They wanted to disband the police. There was all kind of tension going on. The police officers didn't know, the chiefs didn't know what to expect. They were walking in blind.
It's true.
They were walking in
A
blind
lot
to
of
a meeting.
Mm.
They didn't know if we was going to just, start pointing fingers, start identifying the negatives, the wrong. But we came into the meeting, clergy saying, listen, we're not here to point fingers. We're not here to place blame. We're here because we support law enforcement. Well, how can we together come together and help protect and serve our community?
Mm-hmm.
We came in with the agenda of not pointing fingers, not going on past disruptions and all those. That wasn't our objective. Our objective was to head off destruction in York City. And we communicated that. We let them know. And then we start talking about issues. We start talking about some of the things that was going on. And Pastor Ramona Kynert stood up and started talking about her sons. She has about 6 sons. I'm exaggerating. She has a number of sons. And she was fearful of her sons being pulled over. They had been pulled over in Springettsbury Township a number of times trying to just get home. And that was her side of the story. And they were always pulled over, coming home from work, and they felt that they was mistreated and treated badly. And when Dan Stump, who was the chief of Springettsbury Township at that time, heard that, he stood up. I mean, you can see the passion and the hurt in this guy because he couldn't believe that he was hearing that from somebody from the community saying that his police officers treated somebody badly, and when you can hear the passion in his voice, and he spoke transparently about this can't be.
So what I'm hearing is that there needed to be a sit down face to face where both of you, both groups could be vulnerable and
transparent.
And voice concerns.
Yes.
And also listen. It sounds like a lot more listening took place.
That's what.
Talking.
Yes, you're right, Jamie. A lot of listening took place that night, and once the tension and we kind of the ease of being there came upon us, the dialogue started to come more easily. The dialogue started to open up, and a lot of the police officers started to respond and started to and clearly there was one remark that broke the tension out of the room. And that one remark was made by, I think it was Mark Bensel, who was the chief of police for Northern Regional Police Department. He stood up and he said, listen, as police officers, we don't get it right all the time. Wow, Todd, when a police officer admitted that we may miss it from time to time. Why? They're human.
Yeah.
They're human. We got to remember this, that police officers are human too, and they're going to make errors. They're going to make mistakes. And we as the community got to understand and sometimes be able to forgive and understand that they're human too. And they're going to make mistakes. So when he said that, wow, I think that was when tears were flowing, guards went down. We started being the spirit of love started to flow in the room, and from that, the meeting just went in a different direction, and we were able to say, hey, we need more of these.
Yeah.
We need more of these meetings. Let's develop a mechanism where we can come together and tackle the hard subjects, talk about the hard subjects. Let's build a relationship. Let's build some trust.
Why don't we get into one of those hard topics? Because because I'm sure people are wondering, like, what were some of the topics that you talked about and that were really challenging? And can you walk us through maybe an area of tension, what you talked about, and then how you were
Wow.
able to overcome it?
Wow, that's good. You want to talk
Sure.
that? Go ahead.
I think that, in relation to what we were already talking about, part of it from the police side was developing that empathetic ear. Because let's face it, when we go out into the public, we don't know what we don't know. And we had no idea of, when we talked about these topics, the main topic is racism, is what came up initially.
Yes,
And
yeah.
we didn't understand the perspective, and we didn't understand the past and the history of what causes the tension. So we would react in the same way we reacted to everybody. In the police department, you try to treat everybody the same, but you have to also take into account people's past experience and their own history. And I think that was the biggest learning experience when we're talking about the racism part of our conversation. Is that, listen, yes, we will go out and we'll treat everybody fairly, but just because I treat you fairly doesn't mean that translates to Pastor Bill. And we had to develop different trainings. In fact, we invited the pastors to trainings at Springettsbury and other departments around the community.
Yep.
To sit in on the trainings, specifically unbiased policing training, and
That opened the
procedural
door.
justice.
It opened the door.
And they got to see our side of what our training was, how we train our officers. At the same time, we were getting that feedback in the training of how this relates to their community, how this relates to what their past experiences and their history. And it completely opened the door. It let us learn from each other, and I think that made large inroads into the relationship.
Yeah, the racism and discrimination was one of the issues that was the hard topics to talk about.
Yeah.
Because as Chief King just mentioned, the police felt that they treated everybody equally. But black and brown individuals felt differently. We felt that we wasn't treated the same, and we haven't been treated the same, especially on a national level and on a local level. We just felt that, no, we wasn't being treated the same. And we had to talk about that. We had to talk about why we felt we wasn't being treated.
So how did you do that? Through anecdotes, like personal stories?
Yeah, personal stories.
Yeah, okay.
And history stories.
In history, yeah.
What their families might have passed down from generation to generation, so we could get a feel of where this feeling came from.
It was a fear.
The legitimate fear.
Yeah,
the actual legitimate fear.
Fear of police. And then if you look at the national narrative that was going on, and then George Floyd incident came about, and the whole world seen what we have been trying to communicate to the world all along. And when this came about, wow, that really, when George Floyd incident came about, I think just before that we were starting to develop the trust, because we were attending some training. They were asking for our input, and we would give our input, and we would we used the word fellowship together. We would commune together, and then when George Floyd came together, wow, it gave us a great opportunity here in York to stand in unity. And that's what we did.
You already had the platform.
We had the platform.
So that trust, would you say that there was a watershed moment where you realized you could trust one another, or was it just small acts of consistency over time that you just really looked up and realized, oh wow, I trust you now?
It comes back to what Pastor Bill says all the time. It was the relationship. It was that building of the relationship. I don't know if there was an actual watershed moment. I think if anything was a watershed moment, it would have been during the George Floyd incident that really cemented us.
Really, yeah.
But I think even before that, it was that building of the relationship, each individual part, learning that we could trust each other.
We had to learn. This is relationships and building trust is a learned value. It's something that we have to learn to do. And we took the initiative and we developed that. We went out of our way to be open, transparent, and loving. And again, Jamie, I got to say this: we were led. The Spirit of God was leading us because He wanted this done. He wanted, and we have been talking about at some of the meetings about One York, and the police were looking to develop their community relationships at that time. They were working hard to build community relations, and they use this platform to help elevate and to move into the community and to use this collaboration as a mechanism where they could now say, hey, we're serious about building that relationship with our community. We're charged with protecting and serving our community. Help us do it.
Right.
What's the best way to? And going back to George Floyd, during that incident, it was amazing. 17 police chiefs at the time, 18 police chiefs stepped up and all came together and said, we need to do something. And in collaboration with the clergy, we were able to do that. And I think that statement went miles into what we were trying to accomplish as a group.
Yeah. And how we know it went miles, Jamie? Not only did law enforcement and clergy come together, we had CEOs, we had community leaders, we had leaders in the community that said, listen, you guys signing off on this letter denouncing this type of action, we want to sign off too. Okay. We want to sign that letter supporting that we stand in concurrence. And we had a number of outside leaders, influential leaders in York, be a part of what the police and clergy started. It was amazing. Meeting, huh? From one meeting that opened up the door for us to now enter in. And being a part of clergy, the Black Ministers Association, we are now at tables, invited to the tables because they see us as building relationships. They didn't see us as a threat. They didn't see us as coming in, pointing a finger or talking down to someone. They saw us as an ally, saying, hey, these individuals are building relationships. Let's tie into that. Let's build into that. And we got to a number of tables that we would have never been at if we wouldn't have started this collaboration. That started something. That started the opportunity for us to, again, become One York, move towards us doing greater things together. And that's what this is all about, Jamie. We're trying to build this thing one step at a time, as Todd said, one movement at a time, one meeting at a time, and move towards us doing something great for this here county. We're not just looking for the city, we're doing things for the county, and that's how the collaboration came about, because it became a county initiative from that. Yeah.
So what would you say if a young person came up to you and said, there's still a lot of racism in New York, there's still a lot of police brutality? I mean, you've shown that the policing has changed over the past 7 years, that you've actually taken into account what people are saying, and you've adjusted trainings and policing, and so there has been some change. I think everyone can acknowledge there's still room to grow.
Oh, absolutely.
So what would you say to them, someone who says, there's still issues?
I think first and foremost is be part of the voice. We're willing to listen. As a group, as police departments, as clerks, we're willing to listen. Let us know what the issue is, and we will do everything we can in our power to address that issue. I mean, we had the same conversation when we first met. What are the issues? Okay, what can we do? And the nice part about this is now I have an advisor. I have a group of advisors that I can come to and say, I have this the situation that came up. I had somebody tell me that there's this racism that exists. What is our best way to address this?
How
Because
can we
then I'm
address
not just addressing it from my point of view. I'm addressing it from a collective point of view. People who can actually advise me on culture, who can actually advise me on history, and I'll be the first to admit I don't have that knowledge. I don't as much as people might think that we know everything, and I know pastors are the same way. We don't know everything.
Don't know
We
everything.
don't know everything.
Get guidance.
Yeah, exactly.
Supernatural guidance.
So, I think it's the knowledge base. It's that
Yeah.
communication. Open the community. And before you jump to a conclusion, open the communication. Ask.
Mhm.
I'll never
Dialogue.
turn away a phone call.
Yeah. Another addition to that, Todd, you hit it right on. You hit the nail right on the head. But another addition to that, Jamie, that we got to understand that, yeah, these things, racism still exists, discrimination still exists. We're not going to ever, I don't know in my lifetime if we're ever going to be able to overcome that. But, and the reason why is because we're human. Human nature. We are human beings. We can't control somebody's heart. We can't control how somebody thinks. If that's an ingrown attitude that an individual has when it comes to racism, discrimination, and it's all based on ignorance, not knowing, not willing to have a relationship, not willing to understand, not willing to ask questions, not willing to take advice. It's ingrown. It's something that individual has to overcome themselves. And
it's fear.
And yeah, fear plays a big role of it too. Yeah. So the fact of the matter is, as long as we are human, that type of activity is going to continue. All we can do is be able to address it, identify it, address it, and see what we can do collectively. Because one certain individual, one certain group is not going to be able to overcome it. But collectively, we can deal with issues when they come upon us. That was the motivation that caused us to come together. Collectively, we could entertain these concerns and we can do something about it. We can be there when the police have a question, when they have a concern, when there's issues going on in their community, and they don't know how to address it. We have gotten numerous calls. We set up outside meetings. We meet
Wow.
outside of us coming together. Yeah, whatever the need is, we're there because we told them from the door, Jamie, we are there to support law enforcement. Law enforcement is needed. Without law, we have chaos. There's chaos. Someone has to be an authority.
Right.
There has to be an authority. We're there to support authority.
Yeah.
And what we get out of the same relationship is we have given the clergy a voice directly to us. Okay, if you have a question, you have a concern, now they have somebody they can call. Before they hadn't, they didn't have that communication. And that started with the very first meeting. I think it was Dan Stump at the time said, if you have with Pastor Ramona, if you have a question, if you have a problem, call me. Here is my personal cell phone. Call me.
Yep.
Call me, and I will address the concern.
So one of the takeaways then from the audience is I've heard so many takeaways, but one of the big one is that you need relationships in order to achieve some type of common goal. And the only way you can have relationships is through trust and transparency. And the only way you can get to that is if you show up.
And have dialogue.
Call your police.
Yeah.
Attend church, talk to your pastors.
Yeah.
So to wrap up then, what are your pieces of advice for those who want to get involved and want to start those relationships?
Yeah, our meetings are open. We've had community leaders come in, more community leaders come into our collaboration and sit down and see what we're doing. We've opened it up to the public now. We've communicated to the media the things that we're doing, the positive things that we're doing. some of the things that may not. We've had to deal with some tough questions from the community because they didn't understand why we were meeting with the police. They didn't understand.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, they didn't understand the relationship that we was developing. So we had to explain that. We had to talk about these things because, again, it's all about really dealing with crime. Some of the initiatives that have developed, we have been supportive of the GVI initiative that have taken place in York City, because the fact of the matter is the GVI initiative needs community. There's an element where the community plays a role. And whenever the community plays a role, that shows the collaboration of people working together. And when we work together, we get things accomplished. So, yeah.
No, on my side, I'm a Peelian principled police chief. I believe in Sir Robert Peel's principles that he put out way back in 1829. And what it comes down to is we're part of the community.
Yeah.
We're just an element of the community that has been given rights by the people of the community to enforce the law. I have no power without the people. I need the communication.
Yeah.
You want to get involved? Please attend the meetings. Let us know where we're at.
Yeah.
Give us, I can sit all day long and tell you how good my officers are doing from my perspective.
Yeah.
From a law enforcement perspective, and maybe even from the chiefs and clergy perspective. But I need that community input. Show up. I agree with you. Show up. Give us the community input, because I can tailor what we do. I can make changes if there's a community need to make a change.
Yeah.
As long as people realize, like Pastor Bill said, there's still the law, and I still have to enforce the law.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things we covered in the first meeting as well. Look, we can't promise you it's always going to be something. Some things we do are going to be ugly because we're put in that situation.
Yeah.
We can't always promise you it's going to be a pretty solution. I can't always promise you it's going to be the solution that you want, but I will do my best to explain to you what happened, why it happened, within the parameters that I can do that. But yeah, show up. Show up. Give us that voice. Give us that voice of the community. Tell us what we're missing. Because, back in 2017, Chief Stump at the time engaged the Department of Justice to come in to our police department, voluntary partnership with the Department of Justice to come in for the main reason of getting us better roots in the community and showing us what our blind spots are. And I'm a very big proponent of the blind spot section of that, because like I said in the beginning, we don't know what we don't know. I need somebody to be able to shine that light, and the Chiefs and Clergy Partnership did that in a very big way. This is what we're missing.
Yeah.
So as a community, if we're missing something, don't jump to the conclusion that we're doing something intentional. We may not even know we're missing it.
Yeah.
And without that community feedback, we'll never know.
Wow. Yeah. This collaboration also helped the police department's law enforcement to identify training needs.
Absolutely.
And it enhanced some of their training. Now they get excellent training. You hear me? We sat in on some training, but it was able to give them some enhanced training, especially in the area of use of force. A lot of the departments were doing use of force training differently, but now I think that they're now looking at unified ways and enhancing their training to help their officers become better officers. Fact of the matter is, we got to understand, police officers are human, and their wellness needs to be a concern of the community also. It's not an easy job being a police officer today in 2023 and all that's going on. And so we must be concerned about the wellness. We don't want officers out there that's going through mental issues, officers that's having a trouble at home, officers that are going through stress. There's a lot of stress involved in this job. We must be concerned about that. And so training has been developed to ensure that our officers are well enough to perform their job. So
and
that's all part of it.
That training we developed back then became so important to the way we operate that it is now a revisited training at least every other year. We reinforce that training over and over and over again, procedural justice, implicit bias, and it's even gotten to the state level. It's actually a Municipal Police Officers Training and Education Commission requirement now.
Wow.
So I think the nice part about it is, or I guess the positive takeaway is, we saw that need, we addressed the need, and now there's sustainability to that need.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge takeaway for us.
All developed because we came to the table,
right,
and started having dialogue,
man, right here.
building trust.
Oh, guys, thank you so much for joining our first episode of Safer Together Chats. You guys have been awesome. So thank you. For more information, go to Safety Collab's website and stay tuned for our next episode.
Thank you.
Oh, guys. Oh, so good. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jamie,
Thank you
for wanting to do this.